Well, Trump has made clear that he wants to be a peacemaker, right? He talks all the time about the peace deals he's forged around the world. He talks about in his inauguration address that he wants his legacy to be not the wars that he wins, but the wars that he doesn't fight, that are wars that he avoids. And so, we've seen in Ukraine the struggles to forge a peace agreement. Witkoff was in Russia today. We've seen the struggles in the Middle East, both with Iran and in trying to end the war in Gaza. But he has a real opportunity in Asia. There's no war yet, and he has an opportunity to avoid a war. But that requires taking real actions to de-escalate tensions in the cross-state relationship. It requires probably reining in President Lai, who has been quite provocative and confrontational in his approach to China, as you shared earlier. And it means reaching
And I'm sorry, let me just go down that path, because I have seen that myself. And I've heard it from others. But what is he doing different than his predecessors were doing that seems to make China more unhappy?
Well, he's just been very forward-leaning in terms of some of his language, referring to Taiwan as already being an independent, sovereign country, and declaring China a hostile foreign force, and things that try to drive a divide between China and Taiwan, which is the exact opposite of the way China has tried to portray the situation, right? That this is like one people, so that they will be unified. And so, his language has been much more confrontational. He's done this in multiple different speeches and been much more forward-leaning. And it's, the rhetorical differences are small but important. When it comes to Taiwan, the specific language chosen, specific words chosen matter a lot on all sides: China's side, U.S. side, and Taiwan side.
And why do you suppose that he may be doing that now? Is this an attempt to get the U.S. to back him? Does he think he's got the U.S. backing so he can take that risk? What's politically driving, or national security wise driving this change, as far as you can ascertain?
Well, I think a couple of things. I mean, he's always been forward-leaning. This is not a change for him since he came to office. He was known in his political career as someone who was forward-leaning on this issue. That was a concern that China had right from the start, and has kind of borne out. I do think that Taiwan right now is overconfident in its belief that the U.S. will support it. You see that in the underspending in defense. Spending 2.5% of defense when you're 90 miles from China and China wants to reunify with you seems kind of bonkers to me. Even Israel, who has military capabilities that far surpass its neighbors, spends 5% of GDP on defense. So that's just far too little.
What do you think should be? What would be the right number for them if they were serious about their national defense?
Well, Stephen and I wrote in our foreign affairs article, like 4% should be the minimum. I would be comfortable saying that 5 or 6% would be totally within bounds. Bridge Colby, who is now Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, called in his testimony or his confirmation hearing, for 10%. I think 10% is probably higher than they could manage. So, I think 5 or 6% would be a good goal for, over the next 5 to 10 years, sort of a minimum goal. But Taiwan has suggested that it expects U.S. support in other ways too. I mean, its military plans, it's been revising them, and it's kind of been very vocal about how great this is. It's revising, updating its military plans to take on a, asymmetric approach. But if you read between the lines, like the intent of this strategy is to help them hold out until the Americans arrive. So it's premised on the idea that they only have to fight on their own for a certain amount of time, which means that their plan A for self-defense is the Americans come and save us.
Man, and there's no plan B that's going to work. So,
I mean, there's a plan B in which they could potentially deter China from trying by making it clear that it would be very costly and painful to do so. It's possible that they could make it so costly that you have a Ukraine situation where China doesn't end up taking the island, but they end up agreeing to some sort of political compromise. We don't know how China might pursue an invasion. It might not be sort of all out. Having learned from Russia's experience in Ukraine, they might do something like, start an invasion, and then if it seems like it's going really badly, kind of back off, be like, that's it, and see what kind of political concessions they could get for that. So, I think there are worlds in which Taiwan can preserve the status quo, at least for a time. But they're not really investing in that approach, and that's not what their defense strategy is geared to do. It's geared to basically hold out until America comes.
Yeah,
And
2.5% is not going to get you much beyond a plan A.